right. Well, welcome to Beers in the Attic. As always, I'm joined here with Brock Arnies, and we are in season 2, and that means we are bringing the best people around.
Episode 2 of season 2.
Episode 2 of season 2. We wanted to make sure that we brought people around that people actually knew. So, Dave, welcome. You know, I'm Dom. This is Brock. People don't know us. People know you. We have the man, the myth. Some might even say the pirate. So welcome to Beers in the Attic. We are excited to have you here. It is our podcast of just talking about education, getting that vent session, getting that area where we can just talk about deep things. And we are honored and lucky to have you.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm excited to join you. I just have to verify something before we get going. This is Beers in the Attic, and I brought a Diet Coke. Am I still allowed to come in, or what's the story?
Yeah, you're good, man. You're good.
Yeah, Brock will always drink enough for two, so we're good to go. So that's always a good thing to happen there.
The attic is a safe space.
I'm gonna be hopped up on my caffeine, my Diet Coke caffeine, and let's do this.
All right, that's what we like to hear. So, Dave, one of the things that we loved about you is you worked in Santee. We're from Santee. Yeah. We love that we have a connection there. And now we hear you're in Hawaii, so we love that. But tell us and tell our audience, who is Dave?
Yeah, absolutely. So you know what? I taught for 17 years at West Hills High School in San Diego, California, just down Mass Boulevard from the Santana Sultans. Yeah. I know that's got to be I know there's like a little tension there maybe now or something like that.
Yeah, how do we end the podcast now?
Yeah, so it's like they used to call it, I think this was like the sister school, but I didn't feel a lot of brotherly and sisterly love between the two sometimes, you know.
Never.
But that's okay. Just separated by Mass Boulevard a few miles. It's all good. And so I taught there for 17 years, coached basketball a little bit before that there. And while I was there, I kind of wrote this crazy book about teaching, and things kind of changed from that point forward.
And I think that's where we want to start. We've seen the books, we've seen the TED Talks, we've had the conversation. It's teach like a pirate, and
what does that mean?
What does that mean? You know,
do you have a lot? Do you have a little?
We think we know, but we want to hear from the man himself. What does it mean to teach like a pirate?
Absolutely. So I always tell people this has got nothing to do with the dictionary definition. We do not want we don't want teachers to go out and attack and rob ships at sea. Okay. This has got everything to do with the spirit of a pirate. And to me, the spirit of a pirate is someone who is unconventional, someone who's willing to reject the status quo, someone who's willing to sail into uncharted waters with no guarantee of success, a risk taker, a rebel, a maverick in the classroom. Yeah. We want to embrace that spirit of being a pirate. But then in addition to that, pirates are known for having hooks. And so it's a play on words. This is all about how you could hook students and draw them almost magically or magnetically into what you're doing in your room. And then I'm abnormally obsessed with acronyms, as many educators are. And so the first thing I did, I turned the page sideways. I wrote PIRATE down the page, trying to make an acronym. I knew we wanted to talk about passion and enthusiasm. There, the P and the E were sitting at the beginning and the ends of the word, like the cornerstones of it. And I knew I wanted to talk about building rapport with kids and sort of being the heart of teaching. There, the R was sitting in the center. And so I never looked back. Teach Like a Pirate was born. It started as a workshop in the Grossmont District for Grossmont District educators. And, kind of an interesting story about that is I signed up to do a workshop before I had one. I was my department chair said, hey, you want to put together a workshop based on some of that crazy stuff you do down in your room that nobody understands? I said, yes. And then drove away going like, oh my God, that was really stupid. Like, I don't have a workshop. I don't have any of this written down. I don't have this organized in any fashion. And so it was scary. There was a date on the calendar where I was going to have to stand up in front of my peers. And now this is the really kind of stupid part. I didn't sign up to do like a 1 hour session like smart people do. I signed up to do an all full day workshop. It was 6 hours long and I didn't have a workshop. And so I had to get super relentless about pulling everything together. And that was kind of the origin story of the Teach Like a Pirate workshop, which eventually became the book.
That's awesome, man.
So I hear, and you say passion, you say enthusiasm. I just saw it, but
I got stuck on the hook part.
Yeah, I mean, you can come back with the hook because I'm coming back with the passion, enthusiasm. Because
I have a question about the hook.
We're trying to bring passion, enthusiasm, but as you've gone through this, how have you coached and taught teachers to say passion and enthusiasm makes a difference for education? What do you do? What do you tell them?
Yeah. So first of all, I'll start with the enthusiasm, and then we'll move to the passion. So the enthusiasm. Listen, I always tell people don't expect kids to be enthusiastic about something that you're not enthusiastic about. And so you have to bring it. And Carlos Santana, here's the way that he put it. He said enthusiasm was the most contagious thing in the world. The songs become incidental. What people receive is your joy. And I think that's true of teaching, where it's contagious and the lessons become incidental. What students receive is our joy of being there and being with them and being a part of their life. And that draws them in and draws them to us. So that enthusiasm is contagious. You have to bring it. And on the passion side of it, this is a kind of a deep, dark secret of education. See, here's the thing. Everybody says you got to be passionate. Mm-hmm. Okay. You have to bring passion. And they'll get up at a workshop. They'll say something like this. Hey, listen, if you can't find passion for your work, then by God, find new work. And they get you all pumped up, right? But then they say, thank you. And they walk out. Right. But here's the deep, dark secret.
So I think if I could touch on one thing, Dave, I love that engagement piece of it, because I think a lot of times we get excited about I'm going to engage these students in math or in English or in history, but I love what you're saying about it's all about engaging the kids based on who you are and being there for them and being excited to teach. And it doesn't necessarily mean I'm excited to teach this content. I'm excited to be here with you. Right. And so that was a big takeaway for me right off the bat, is that it's not, a lot of people get into education because they're like, I'm so passionate and I want to engage students about history, but we miss that point of I'm excited to be here with you. And so that was, just from what you said so far, I love that.
Yeah. And so that ties into this secret. And so everyone tells you you're supposed to be passionate about your work. But, and with apologies to Sir Mix-a-Lot, this is a big but, okay? But, right, we are not passionate about everything we teach. Mm-hmm. Hey, let the freedom wash over you, okay? And so, there's those days where you might love your curriculum, but there are those days, right? And so what do you do on those days? And so that's why I broke passion into 3 categories. And so those 3 categories are, one of those categories you mentioned, your content passion. Mm-hmm. Some of us have a lot of passion around our content, and that's okay, but it's not always going to be about the content. So there's 2 other categories. Another category is your professional passion. That is, what is it about being an educator outside of your content area, outside of your curriculum, that you're passionate about? That is an area that you can always be focused on and bring passion. Like for me, I'm focused on embracing the mightier purpose of being an educator as a life changer. And how can I build a life-changing lesson into what we're talking about today? So maybe it's not about the content I'm excited about. I'm still excited about coming to school and interacting and being a part of kids' lives and hopefully help creating a life-changing lesson for them, right? Mm-hmm. And then the third category, your personal passions. What is it? So what are you passionate about completely outside of education? Mm-hmm. And how can you bring some of that into what you do as an educator? Because what is unique about you, your particular strengths and talents and your voice that you add to your classroom is what makes you most powerful and effective with with students.
I agree with you. I think Brock and I have tried to bring all of our passions outside of education right into our world. Our passion is football. I mean, we don't beat West Hills, but when we did play, we're having fun with that. But bringing that passion for sports and the dynamic of sports has always trickled in with the language that we use with our kids. And I think that's what has helped us, transform into administration, is that team building, that team connection, and knowing that the team is more powerful than just one. And I think, as you say, that's absolutely right. We can be passionate about certain different elements of what we are trying to generate within schools, within our classrooms, for our students. But I know Brock was hooked on the hook.
I was hooked. I mean, because and this may be a little bit of a rhetorical question now that we've gone into some of that explanation, but thinking about being an ex-English teacher myself, the hooks are important, right? That's what gets your audience to buy in, and your audience as a teacher are your students. And so I think one of the questions I have for you is, we talk about engagement and passion, but what's the hook? How do you get students to draw into who you are so that way they can buy into, right? Because that's how they buy in. How do you get them to buy into what it is that you're delivering, whether it be content or other outside things that you're bringing in to get them to understand who you are as a teacher?
Yeah, so the hooks, there's a wide variety of them. So I have over 30 different hooks that are in the book, and plus 170 different brainstorming questions around those hooks for you to be able to generate ideas for your content, your curriculum, not just what I did, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's important to use that wide variety. But what these are, so to kind of, one way to put this is I look at teaching as a triple Venn diagram. And so one of those circles is content. You got to have that circle or you're just an entertainer or a babysitter. Okay. Mm-hmm. We have to have that content circle, right? But there's all kinds of places you can learn your content. There's books about it. There's professional development on content, online places to learn content, all that kind of stuff. Then there's this second circle. It interlocks with it, techniques and methods. And you two know, as educators, we got a whole toolbox of techniques and methods to teach that we've gotten from our credential programs, from trainings in our district, from our colleagues, conferences we've attended, books, all this kind of stuff like that. But then there's a third circle that I don't think anybody's talking about. And that third circle, number 3, I label presentation. So yes, you know your content. Yeah, you got all these techniques and methods, but now how are you going to present it in such a way that it's engaging for kids? How are you going to present it in such a way that it's relevant for them? How are you going to present it in such a way that it draws them almost magically or magnetically? And that's the third circle of Teach Like a Pirate. And so it's not necessarily about the content. That could be, I don't know what you teach. It's not about the techniques and methods. We all share a lot of those things, like that. We've been to the Think, Pair, Share workshop, not whatever it might be. Yes. Like we have this toolbox of techniques, right? But what about your presentation? What are you doing to your environment that draws them in? What is written on the board when they walk in? What do you say before they leave today that makes them excited to want to come tomorrow, right? Builds up mystery, curiosity, buzz, anticipation. And one of the ways I describe this is I call that preheating the grill. Listen, I don't put my steak down on a cold grill. I preheat my grill. But when you drop your steak down on a cold grill, nothing happens. But when you drop your steak on a preheated grill, what happens? It sizzles. I want my content to sizzle when I drop it. So I'm always looking for ways to preheat the grill, building up that mystery, curiosity, buzz, and anticipation with kids. And so all these are the things that I label as hooks. What are you doing in your presentation to draw them in? How are you relating it to their life and things that are going on in their life to make it relevant for them? How are you, all these things are important.
Man, as I'm sitting here, I'm just like, Dave, I've met people all across education. I've met coaches and people that motivate me to just like run through a wall. As you are talking, I'm like, yo, I need to go back to school.
I want to go teach.
I want to teach right now. I want to go back to high school with Dave. This is great. So I guess, Dave, one of the things that we have a question for you is, what motivated you to be the educator you are? Who motivated you? What motivated you? What changed you to say, you know what, education's where it's at, and I'm going to make a huge difference in it?
Yeah. So first of all, how I got in, I'll tell you the gateway drug into teaching. All right. I'm going to tell you the gateway drug into teaching, and this will resonate with both of you. And that is, it was coaching.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So
100%.
So my first job as a human being was I worked 3 summers for John Wooden at the John Wooden basketball camps in Thousand Oaks, California. Okay, so a formative time in my life, I worked for 3 summers for John Wooden. Got to see him do his pyramid of success every week with campers and parents and all that stuff and instruct and all that. So that had a big impact on my life. And then my first job in a school system is I was hired down the street from you, originally as the boys junior varsity basketball coach, eventually went on and did some other things, like, in the girls program and stuff like that, but coaching. And then I love working with the kids so much, I went back to night school and got my teacher credential and became a teacher, right? So, but I started as a coach. Yeah. And so that's where it all began. And, seeing that impact that you can have on kids' lives and wanting to do that in the classroom all day. I wanted it to be my career, not just something I did after school. Yeah. And so that's kind of where it started. And then as far as the techniques, just to be perfectly honest with you, it was survival. I was teaching a tough population of kids. I wasn't teaching the students that just where there's no behavior problems, right? And so I realized very quickly, a lot of those things they teach you in credential classes, they don't work out so well in the real world, right? Yeah. And so it was like, okay, wait a second. I'm going to find a way to grab these kids and engage these kids, or I'm going to burn out and leave this profession. Right. And so a lot of it was a matter of like, it was almost like a survival skill.
Yeah. Right. Well, I mean, it's crazy too. This is more of a commentary than it is like a question for you, Dave, but it's crazy how true that is, especially coming from a coaching background, because I think a lot of times you fine tune some of those teaching skills and strategies when you're a coach. Like a lot of the times we get taught about like backwards planning and doing all these things. And as a coach, you're constantly doing backwards planning because you're thinking, what is the goal of beating this team, right? Or if you're a classroom teacher, what is the goal of passing this assessment? And then you move backwards from that. So you start developing these skills and implementing practices to get students or players engaged in understanding what it is that I need to do to accomplish this goal. And so for me, I think that's really cool in thinking about that coaching background and how that pertains and kind of dials into, what it is that got you passionate about teaching. And you talk about a survival skill, and you're dealing with students of all different learning levels and socioeconomic backgrounds and things like that. So again, more of a commentary, but I think it's that coaching background is, I feel like helps out a lot in understanding how to be passionate and getting students or players to understand what is our goal and how are we going to get there.
And that was both Brock and I. We were coaches first, and we said, hey, athletics is where it's at. We never saw a vision of saying, hey, let's lead a school. We said, let's coach high school kids and get to the college level and have some fun there. And so when we got into education, there were some people saying, you're not going to make it. You don't know how to handle this. You're a football coach. You're taught to yell at kids and make kids run and make kids do this. So the thing that Brock and I said to push back on people were like, no, it's about the relationship. It's about the rapport with students. And we heard you kind of talk about that a little bit. What does it mean to have rapport with students, and how do you create that and build that, especially in a high school setting when you maybe not know those students?
Yeah, so that's something, the coaching connections I could talk about all day, because it's just like there's so many. As far as the rapport and relationship thing, so we know as coaches that you build super strong connections with your players, much stronger often than as a classroom teacher, even though you have more days maybe with them in the classroom per year. But the thing is, it's because all that edge time. So relationships and rapport, like I'll tell people, listen, there's more rapport is built around the edges of your lessons than in the actual formal instruction. It's that conversation you have when kids walk in the room, right? When they get there a little bit early before the bell rings. It's that conversation in the hallway. It's that extracurricular event that you show up at and you talk to kids in the stands or at the in line at the snack bar, right? All these different things. And coaches, we have unbelievable amounts of edge time because we have like travel to games, and we have time where you go out in the field and stretch and do things, and like, or in the equipment room or whatever it might be, and you have all this time around kids that's not structured, and that's when you really build that rapport and those relationships. So as teachers, we have to capture as much of that edge time as we possibly can and look to make those strong connections with kids and learn as much as we can about them, because we don't have that same amount. That's the same way. It's the same for like, say, like band directors and people who do theater and all, like those programs where you spend a lot of time outside of the classroom with kids. That's where the real strong relationships are built. And so we have to find ways to kind of get that same thing in the classroom. Now, you mentioned this stuff about the coaching, and here's another thing about the coaching is you talk about like assessment in classes and stuff like that. But coaching offers the ultimate assessment, and that's games. Like you have to be, the kids have to be able to perform the skills at speed and make the decisions under a competitive circumstance with the other team trying to defeat them and stop them, right? And so you find out very quickly where your coaching weaknesses are and and you get, it's kind of thrown into your face, right? And so I think that's important to realize, is that like, people say like, oh, you don't know what it would be like to be a classroom teacher. You're just a coach. Like, are you kidding me? I've got thousands of people in the stands on Friday night who are, you're upset because an administrator is going to walk through your room for 5 minutes and evaluate your lesson.
The parents will tell you.
I got 1,000 people who are coming on Friday night And every single one of them got an opinion about the plays that we run and what kind of defense we're running and all the kind of stuff like this, right? And so we're used to that as coaches. And then the other part of this is, and you learn the importance of fundamental skills and that whole like kind of whole building that is important in education as well in the classroom. And where like you very quickly learn, you could have the fanciest plays in the world, you can have the best offense, all that, but what ultimately what's going to come down to is like, hey, can your kids block and tackle?
Can execute.
Can your kids catch the ball? Can they run can they read the defense and realize that that they're in a zone, so I need to cut my pattern short and find the open area or whatever it might be, right?
I'm doing okay. And so he's getting excited.
Getting excited over here, Dave.
This is important. Like as a basketball coach, you decide there's two routes you can go. You can either decide you can decide that you're going to teach basketball plays or you're going to teach how to play basketball. And I believe in teaching how to play basketball, right? And so like, for example, run motion offense. Well, you know what? I don't know what's going to happen when they come down the court this next time because we're not running a play. We're going to react to the defense. We're going to read the defense. We're going to set that screen. And depending on how the defense reacts to that screen, my player is either going to back cut, they're going to curl cut, they're going to fade cut, they might do all sorts of different things, but I don't know what's going to happen because I don't know if the defense is going to do that play. Now that's scary as a coach. Yep. Because it's easy as a coach, just want your kids to go down and run some pattern, right? But it's empowering as a coach and empowering for your kids when you teach them the skills, the principles that you want them to know, and then allow them to read and react on the field or on the court.
Mm-hmm. Well, that goes into like a conversation around transfer skills and are they going to have what they need to, like if you think about those two analogies, like are they going to have what they need to be successful on the next assessment in the next grade level, those kinds of things. But I love that connection between, am I going to teach basketball plays or am I going to teach them basketball, right? So like bringing that back into the classroom, it's, am I going to teach, it goes back to the same old conversation. Am I going to teach to the test or am I going to teach my kids to be successful far beyond that? And so that to me was like, that was a huge eye opener just within that like 1 minute conversation about what's more important is teaching your kids the concepts and skills that will make them successful throughout the year and throughout their years at a specific high school, as opposed to, I need to make sure you pass this test that I'm going to give so you have a good grade kind of thing. Because that's a smaller conversation, right? That's a smaller idea, smaller concept, as opposed to making sure they're successful long term.
Right. And
let's say if you have your quarterback, you're running some sort of option offense or something like that, and you're not telling your quarterback, hey, on this play, for sure you keep it, or for sure you're pitching, or that you're teaching him, look, I want you to read. Here's who you're looking to read as you're rolling down the line with the ball. And if this person engages you, then you're kicking it, right? If this person doesn't engage you, then you're keeping it. Like, but you want them to know that principle. You don't want them to know just what we're going to do necessarily on any particular down.
Yeah, so you got to teach person to fish, man.
I mean, I came here for a podcast conversation. I came to a free seminar of motivating me to become better. And Dave, man, it has been a blast. So as we kind of get closer to the end of the time, a couple things that I want to just make sure we get across is, number one, what's the best advice you can give to any teacher, if they're a new teacher, if they're a veteran teacher, if it's year 3, if they teach CTE, or if they're a PE teacher, science, math? What is the best advice you have for teachers today?
Yeah, so I have a phrase that I use with teachers all the time, and it's, how can I use a question? How can I use that? I think you should look around the world and always ask, how can I use that? Okay, so like when you see something go viral in your student population, for example, don't get upset about it. Think about, oh, well, man, that got big fat. How can I use that? Right? How can I? And as you're looking around the world, you're saying, you have that, how can I use that mindset? A lot of the ideas that Teach Like a Pirate, there's something unusual about the book. Not a single education book is referenced inside of it. It's not because I don't like education books. I published over 130 books. Okay. Right. It's because that's not where it came from. It was from the outside drawn in. It was my background as a coach. I brought that to the table. My background as a magician, I brought that to the table. My sense of staging and showmanship is from my background in magic. My background as an MC. Like if you see me do a professional development seminar, you might walk away going like, wait a second, was this PD or was this a show? I've learned how to speak. I've learned how to speak in a fast and flourishing manner in order to to try to make my message more engaging and more persuasive, right? And so I've learned how to deliver, to send out charisma and energy through vocal performance. And so all these things have helped me, but I brought them from outside of education in. My background as an entrepreneur and a marketer. I use entrepreneur and marketing techniques in my classroom, right? Because what does a marketer want to do? A marketer wants to influence you, and they want you to influence you to take action. It's not enough to get you to just think about something. A marketer wants you to take action. Well, that's what I want kids to do. I want to influence them, but I don't want just to do that. I want them to actually take action and do something to change their life. And so I'm using marketing and sales techniques in order to do that. And so all these things have been brought together to create what I call Teach Like a Pirate. But that's a mindset that I think the educators in general can have, is no matter what's going on, think about what's drawing people in and how can I use that?
Love it.
Yeah. I mean, obviously this is the first episode, right? In our new format, because Dave is bringing it and saying like, wow, this is great. And this is, if this is how the season's going to go, this is going to be amazing.
Well, he's already done a good job of relating it to sports and things.
Already got me. I'm about to run outside and do some rounds right now. But what's next for you, Dave? What's next for Teach Like a Pirate? What is you are a best-selling author. You are a well-known author. You are making a difference in this world. What's next for you?
Yeah, so we're super pumped up right now about trying to amplify the voices of other educators and have through their books. And so it started with Teach Like a Pirate, but I was so upset when I saw publishing contracts. When I was offered a publishing contract, I went up to my hotel room and Googled a couple publishing contracts because I thought I was getting cheated. And then I realized I wasn't. That's what they look like. And to me, the only thing missing was a ski mask and a gun. And so we formed Dave Burgress Consulting, and we published Teach Like a Pirate from a laptop at the kitchen table. So, but then after telling my story, we kind of have moved to try to tell the story of other educators. And so like now, we're trying to amplify the messages of other educators, and we have about 130 different books that we publish. So we're pumped about that. And then just brand new, one episode out, second episode dropping probably tomorrow. The Dave Burgress Show. I'm jumping into the podcasting world. The Dave Burgress Show is out there live. So wherever you listen to podcasts, wherever you listen to this one, check out the Dave Burgress Show.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure. I was just going to ask, where's a good place to find some books that you wrote, and for people that will listen can go and give it a search and all that kind of stuff. So legally, I'm not sure.
Yeah, but I think this. David, it's an honor to have you, and we, being out of Santee, we know you for a different reason, but being an educator, we know you for another reason. And as an author myself trying to do better, I know you for a whole nother reason. So to have you say yes to come and have a conversation with us today has been remarkable. We are thankful. We are excited. And hopefully, as you get to enjoy Hawaii, if we can't see you there, when you come back to beautiful Santee, we either got the Oaks Tavern Kitchen ready for you if you haven't been there, or unofficial sponsor, or good old Marietta's, and we'll get you whatever you need there, because Dave, it was an honor and just a good conversation. So thank you for being a part of Beers in the Attic. The cheers is to you, even if it's the Diet Coke. We say cheers to you, Dave.
Cheers, Dave.
And we can't wait to hear your next podcast. Thank you for being on ours. And until next time, my friend, aloha. I got to say it.
Aloha. Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it. And I apologize for that blue field down the street from me.
We'll take it.